Okay, so today we're going to do some visuals from the dendera, and we're going to talk specifically about uh, frogs. Why are there frogs raining from heaven in chapter 8, Exodus? Well, so the first thing is to go into the dendera, and this answered a question. It was very simple. It only took a minute when I first saw this image because up until then I didn't know. I thought, well, if the Maya had the 20 days and the Chinese had the 20 days and the Cherokee have the 20 days and all these people have the 20 days, the Egypt must have had the 20 days. So Egypt definitely had the 20 days, and this is pretty important because it will clarify a lot of misunderstandings about Egypt symbology. And Egyptology makes no mention of this. Um, so, if they don't, if an Egyptologist does not regard that a huge amount of the symbolism in Egypt was the 20 days and the 36 decans, they are not someone you need to be listening to. They might have other things. I do not look at the hieroglyphs. I've had other people that do, and then they tell me what they say, and I'm a lot of times in the Temple of Dendera particularly, it does not match what I'm looking at. That is really, really painfully obvious. So this is the figure for T-Hox. It's half the picture. Okay, this is when you go into the dendera, there's a panel, there's a big mural on a wall. It goes down the wall, and all the way at the end of the wall, at the end of call it the second half of the mural, is this image right here that we're looking at. So the guy on the right is a frog-headed human carrying two knives. That much is very obvious. Well, right off the bat, because the other thing, people look at this and they go, oh, wow, the Egyptians had electricity. Well, if just the basic descriptor of the Maya for this day is they will sometimes call it, they have different elements to it. One of them is the knife. So the knives are symbolic to this day. Also, the Egyptian symbology of the frog is their unique cultural animal symbol for this day, and it has a very good reason for being so. But they did a great job because when you look at this particular image, everybody gets this sense that there's something going on to do with electricity. And they are correct because T-Hox is the day of the lightning. And it is the 8th day of the 20 days. It is the day of the lightning. And the lightning always comes before the storm. And the next day is Kawak, and it is the day of the rainstorm. And so thunder and lightning on T-Hox, and then rain at the end of the day on Kawak. So the 8th and 9th day encompass this mystical aspect of lightning, thunders, and rain into human and all life. It's terrifying. But they know, and they would refer to, specifically in Exodus, they refer to lightning as the fiery serpents coming from heaven. So, and it kind of is. It's a great descriptor for it. If you say fiery serpents came out of the sky, I think everybody across the world would universally know what you're talking about. So, it's also technically, the other thing that you should immediately notice about this image is that this is a man with his family. And there's the what looks to be the mother, possibly, doesn't matter, and younger children. So, and this is T-Hox because T-Hox is also the day of the father mothers. The men born on this day are excellent parents for the most part. Obviously it's not universal, but but comparatively to the rest of these guys are going to be very diligent, very, what would you call it? Diligent's good enough word. Diligent parents. They can be overly dominant, but if that part of it is balanced out, these guys are excellent at raising families and making sure they're provided for, all their needs are met. They are very good defenders of the family. And they also are known to have a lot of daughters. And so the next day is Kawak. That is the day of the daughters in the 20 days. In the pantheon, the whole time around this is known as the Poseidon daughters, because this is in the water quadrant. So all I'm saying is this symbology is very well done from an artistic perspective. I don't think it's conveying some kind of ancient technology. I think what it's conveying is, look, this is electricity. It is the family. It is the day of the frog and the day of the knife, and that's T-Hox. So when I saw this image, I said, boom, there it is. Now you can begin to look for other things to put together this mystery of where are the 20 days in Egypt, because if all these other civilizations had them across the planet, we know they had it in Egypt. So, and here is probably the greatest example of it. So it's not some kind of, I don't see electricity here. I mean, I see it being intimated. And and they probably intuited that electricity has a lot to do with all life. I mean, people didn't just get smart yesterday, obviously. So that's what this is. And there's a reason for all these symbols. We'll go through them. So the one interesting thing that happened in modern time to just complete this whole cycle in intuition is that the first time we started doing pregnancy tests, because this is a big day for male fertility, okay? And the opposite, the antipodal to this day is Khien, and it is the day of the feminine fertility, the women who like to have lots of babies. And over here we have the men who like to have lots of babies. And this is nature-wide, it's not human-specific. And it ended up later on that after rabbits, which is the symbol for Khien, by the way, the frog ends up being the one that really does the good test. And I think we still use it to this day. There's a weird thing with the African clawed frog. Biologically, you can look it up. That's the actual name of it, is the African clawed frog. And we used that frog to formulate our, different things from that frog to formulate our modern pregnancy tests. That was a big leap forward, no pun intended. The image of the frog is important because they live between two worlds, and T-Hox is the balance of polarities. So when lightning actually comes out of the sky, it's actually balancing this imbalance that has come about due to, moisture and static electricity, and there becomes this imbalance. The discharge of electricity is the best descriptor of T-Hox because it is the balance of the polarities. Thus, he has a knife in each hand. This is a balanced energy, and physically as well, because this is coming out of the Eight Masters as the Kung Fu, right? And Bruce Lee was, I think, born on this day. He said, "Be water, my friend." So it's just on and on and on with the examples. I'm not doing a ton of people examples today, one or two, that's it. We're going straight for Exodus. This is why we're going to get to why frogs rain from heaven on chapter 8. It's very, very simple I don't know if you can see it. It should change your mind about everything about the text. But um, frogs live halfway between two worlds. They are amphibious. So Tehox is the one Earth day in the water quadrant. So the frog is a perfect symbol from that perspective alone, much less the way that they raise their babies and all this and that. But there it is. That is a frog-headed man in the Dendera, and it is real easy to know what that is if you know the days. You have to learn them. And in the I Ching, the Tehox is the balance. They call it the desire for unity. That's the base descriptor of it. And, in the I Ching, they're very, very, they minimalized everything down to, very, very straightforward, minimalist viewpoint of holistic energies. And in the Maya, they're much more complicated. They have all kinds of things to say about it. So a lot of times the Mayan glyph here shows what they will describe as the top, the view from the sky looking down on the top of the pyramid. And they will say also it is the view from the tip of the knife. So if you take a knife and you turn it towards yourself, then you see that view. You see the point in the center and the sides going out. It is also very well known as the Day of Flint. There are actually people of the flint, and this is Tehox, and they are the keepers of nature as well. The I Ching goes into a very descriptive story to describe this energy, where they say, here in this we see the great leader who leads his people out to go hunting, and they round up all the animals and drive them back into this corral. But at one end of the corral, there is one section of the fence missing, because the great leader knows you do not kill them all. You've got to leave other animals. So the United States Park, let's see, what's it called? The Department of Parks. Our United States Park Department has a symbol of a flint, and that is they were born on the day of Tehox. That's the day it started. And so, yeah, it's about keeping nature, preserving nature, and all these things. It is not to dominate it, although these people can be dominant, but it's actually listed as a bad trait. The domination is not the right trait. It's useful if you need it, but it's not if you're misusing it. That domination is not a good thing to have around, right? So you can see Patronus Towers there, designed by Cesar Pelé. I don't know about the pronouncement, but he was born on the day of 8 Tehox. He couldn't stand it. He had to do this. He had to connect those buildings. And in the bottom, which was a brilliant manifestation of this energy in art, is the double lines of fountains going down right in between the buildings. And I just said, wow, that, if there is any modern glyph, an actual thing built that models this day better than anything else I can imagine, it is this one. And they look like giant electrodes. It's just it's over the top. And there also, next to that, you see, this is the primary image you see when you come into this very narrow hallway where this mural is. This is the other half of the mural. The frog guy's all the way down at the end on the right. This is up in front and center there. And it's two of these, isn't it? Because you've got to have this polarity intimated here. And so that's what they show. And there's the electricity coming in from two sides. It's just, it's very symbolic. It's very beautiful. It's very plain. It's very simple if you understand these energies. So that's what that is. You've got to have two of them. But then at the other end, it really describes this core energy, how it conveys to the human family. And the animal, and this and that. But yeah, everybody's right to look at that mural and say, wow, electricity, this must be electricity. That's exactly what they wanted to convey, so they did a beautiful job. And lightning is a fiery serpent, okay? So T-Hawks, this bullfrog here, see these big bullfrogs? There's a great YouTube video out there. I don't know where it is. You'll have to go find it. But I think this is an image from that. But behind this big bullfrog is this puddle, or this little pond. You can see he keeps it dammed up. He's sitting on the dam right there. He's keeping that. This is the male frog. He's the one who raises all the babies. And that's why they're considered, when we're assigning purposes, or not assigning them, but figuring them out. Some of these dudes they take over. They don't really need a woman. They want the company. They like the affection. They like everything there is to like about women. They just don't want any interference when they're raising the babies. They're going to do that. So good luck. Check if you have a real problem, your husband is the lead parent for the children in the household, check his day. If it's this day and he has domination issues where he just slams his fist down all the time, or he just puts his foot down and just doesn't really have much wiggle room, and he's a little rigid, well, you can remind him, tell him to watch this video, because I would tell the dude, settle down, just relax. You're not all that, okay? But these frogs raise those babies from tadpoles all the way up, and they protect them and keep them in this little pool, and that's how it works with frogs. The female comes, lays the eggs, the male goes over the eggs and lays his sperm on top of the eggs. So I don't even know if they actually copulate. I don't think they do. So but some of them maybe, but these guys raise the babies. The male frog is the lead role in the parentage. The other is amphibious. There's very few amphibious creatures that are common. Well, we have salamanders. That's a different day because there's something else about those. I'm not going to get into that. But frogs specifically, they are very amphibious. In other words, they can just be under the water, breathe the water through their skin. They can be out on the shore, and they have nostrils. They can breathe the air there. So they can live in two worlds. And they can breathe the water and the water. Because when you look at water and air, the only difference that's visually apparent is density and movement. So you can poke the water and it moves, and you can see it move. But the air, you can poke it, but you can't see it move. When you see wind, then you can see it move. When you see the clouds moving, you can see it move. But water is a little more responsive, but it is clear, transparent nonetheless, both of them. So this didn't go unnoticed by people. And being the Earth Day in the water quadrant, that bullfrog picture is perfect. It's just, that is the right symbol. You can't come up with anything better. You can't change it. It's a very important day in the pantheon of all the different studies. In the amino acids, this is glycine, because glycine is the only non-chiral amino acid of the 20. And what that means, it is a mirror image of itself. So that's it. So it's just, the mirror is in this day, the obsidian, the flint, the knife. It's the line, keepers of the line, I'll call it sometimes, because they set up boundaries around the state parks. They keep they'll set up boundaries they respect animals' territories. So that's actually a very human, positive outcome of this energy, is the respect of the territory of other species. All species know about that, but we like to pretend everything is ours. And it's, how's that working out for us? There you go. So what they actually think is this command to be dominant, go out and dominate the earth. That's actually on the, that's in the chapter of T-Hawks in Genesis, but we're not doing that one today. We're just doing Exodus because I want to illustrate the frogs. And this is why the Egyptian symbol for that day is the frogs. Many, 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 many easily verifiable reasons, not one or two. So here's the first 13 chapters of Exodus, and Exodus follows the 20 days chapter by chapter. So chapter 1 is the first day, chapter 2 is the next day, chapter 3 is the next day, blah, blah, blah. So, but I thought, well, what a simple thing. We'll just go to chapter 13 and say, well, there has to be a birth of a new being on that chapter, because you really can't typify the day of Akabal unless you mention the birth of a new being or a new way of being. And that's exactly what happens in this process. And it gets there very, very quickly, and it packs a lot of stuff into it. So by the time you go from chapter 1 to chapter 13, you've actually been introduced to Moses, went through all these contending issues, and all these weird things have happened. And then by chapter 13, you've got the birth of a new being. It's perfect. So chapter 1 is Batz. That is directly quote from the Maya of this day, the Quiche Maya descriptor, family spread over the earth. Or actually the exact quote is family of man spread over the earth. And so in that chapter, they're going to talk about everybody. I don't even have to look at it, but I have. But I'm just saying, when you know these things, you don't have to look at the chapter. You can tell what it's going to thematically represent before you look at it. So the family spread over the earth. 2 is the path. This is E. This is the water day, and the water it's the water that spreads over the whole earth. So rivers are a very good symbol of this. Oceans are a good symbol, but probably the best symbol is dew, because that's the one type of water, the form of it, that absolutely covers the entire earth. But rivers very much, the way they cut their paths that's absolutely excellent. So why did they put them in the reeds? Well, the next day is Aj. So Aj is a fire day. This is power. This is the day of empowerment, power. This is the day of the first breath. And it's symbolized by the reeds. This actually is the Aztec. I think it's the Aztec. They actually call this day, they don't call it Aj. Aj is the Quiche Maya word for it. They call it, quite plainly, the reed. And so it's, it just goes on and on, but that's the day of the reeds. And this is the day that Moses sees the burning bush, right? So the burning bush is the fire, and the bush itself is in the I Ching descriptor, it is the lead line of that. Says this pictogram, or they don't call them pictograms, but this glyph is to show a plant struggling to grow and push its way up through the earth into being. And so it's like it is a birthing energy, although chapter 2 in E, this is the birth. These are the people that work in the maternity wards. Be very interesting to go to a maternity hospital, check out all the best ones. Don't go to the people that may or may not, shouldn't be there. They're just there to have a job. If you actually find the women who are in birthing babies, like, you will find them, that will be a popular day there. So the burning bush is Aj, that's the fire day and the plant. And then the next day is Ish, and this is the earth magic. And this is the day, where, God says, well, hey, what you got there in your hand? And he says, oh, it's a rod. He says, try this, check this out, throw it on the ground, watch this. This is magic. So he teaches them magic on the day of earth magic. There's nothing, there's nothing, I don't think there's anything more to it. This is also the day where he's going home And he's on. Oh, he's purposely. He's on the way home, and he stops at the bar. And he stops at the bar, and then all of a sudden, out of the clear blue sky, God's gonna kill him. Now, if you, there's no other place in the Bible where God's like after this one dude. And I'm telling you, the God of chapter 4 is woman, because this is the day of woman. That guy is stopping at the bar. He is shirking his responsibilities, regardless of what they are, because you're at the bar. And when you do that, and you have a wife and children at home, she will tell you, I'm going to kill you. If you take that paycheck to the bar, I'm going to kill you. And so women just are allowed to say this, and it's a very common thing. It's not new. It is throughout history, and that's why that's in there. So, but magic and I'm going to kill you, yeah, this is woman. Khien number 5 is this is Khien. This is the messengers to Creator and the burdens. So the burdens. This is in the pantheon. This is very close to Santa Claus, because the first decan of Capricorn is Santa Claus, and he's got a, they draw a picture of him in the Hindus. He's got this big log on his back, and in the I Ching it talks about the stump of a tree straightening the man's spine. It's the day of straightening the men out, and that's what that is. And it can sometimes be harsh. It can be actually quite destructive and nasty, but yeah, we just get through that. It's also, now there's other things, but 6 is Ajmak. This is the ancestor. So we're in chapters here. I'm talking about chapters. Chapter 6 is Ajmak. This is the ancestors and contending the issue. In the I Ching, it recommend, the Maya will call it the day of forgiveness, and in the I Ching they'll say, here we see in it one contending the issue to the bitter end. So this is the kind of long-range fights that happen, and they can actually stick around for a long time if you don't properly take care of it. Like Babe Ruth, the curse of the Bambino, Ajmak is the day that he was traded. Okay, and this was an orphan. It was his first family. He finally was happy for the first time in his life. He was magnificently successful, and he just, he belonged, and then they just traded him, and he never forgave them. So I actually believe in the curse of the Bambino, because he was like his child. His inner child was so damaged by, imagine, never having family, never really having that sense of belonging and family and just camaraderie that you get with a baseball team, all put together for the first time in his life, and then just having it ripped out from underneath you with the stroke of a pen for no good reason. Now that was the curse of the Bambino. Chapter 7 is Noj. This is the intelligence. In that chapter, there's a lot of different little things about intelligence. Intelligence is simply gathering information. You've got to, it's not this guy's smarter than that guy. That's not what intelligence is. That's wisdom. Intelligence is the actual act, and this is the way it's used in the military sense, is you're just gathering information. Like intelligence can be, there's a house 6 miles away, it's 2 stories tall, it's got a pond out in front. There's a man with his wife and 6 children living there. They've got a pen of hogs out back. See, all these little data points are intelligence. And then number 8 is the chapter of Tihox, and here we have frogs raining from heaven, and that's just bizarre, because as I've just said and just showed you, frogs are the Egyptian, the African symbol for that day. So no other people on this planet that I know of, and if anybody's found it, I don't, I'm not bragging. I'm just saying, like, I think I'm the only guy looking at this stuff. I'm not the only guy that knows it. I'm just the only one looking hard at it and trying to find it in other places. Tihox, or Egypt, was the only place that had, for Africa in general, where they knew that was the Day of the Frogs. And that's their symbol for it. So, I don't know about any other cultures. No other culture that I know of has the frog as their symbol of that. Like say in the Maya, it's the pyramid, the knife, the flint, a lot of inanimate objects, hard objects. In the I Ching, it is they simply call it the desire for union. And those are all very good descriptors, but there's the frogs. The next chapter, chapter 9, is Squawk. That's hail and thunder. So thunder and lightning and rain, okay? So there's what goes on throughout that whole chapter. I mean, by the end of the 8th chapter, you really shouldn't have any more doubts. But if you need to pile on, let's go to the next one. There's the hail and the thunder. And then we'll go to the next one. Number 10, there's Ashpu. These are the protectors and the sun, people of the sun. And they actually use the sun to call this day sometimes. So what happens on that one? Well, they take away the sun. It's all dark. There's no sun. You have no protection if there's no sun. You have to have the sun to survive. But on that chapter, it's taken away, and that is so ashpoo. Then the next day is, this is the weird chapter. I'll probably end up doing a video just on this chapter because chapter 11 is very unique among all the chapters of the entire Bible. It is repeating and verifying something from Genesis chapter 1. And that is done by only having 10 verses. Because in the Egyptian aspect of the 20 days and the 260-day calendar, because we're talking about Trasinas, Trasina's 13 days, so 13 times 20 is 260. This is the calendar they were using. To limit that chapter to precisely 10 verses is exactly matches, because Genesis chapter 1 begins 11 Batz. So here it ends on 10Z, which is the next day after that. If they did an 11th verse in that chapter, it would have been 11 Batz, but they didn't. And they said, yeah, there's your reference. So it was very, very, very nicely done. Reading it, I appreciate that they do that. So, but it's borrowing. The Emosh is the one, and the I Ching is the 11th I Ching. Again, all the I Ching numbers are the same as these. Okay, so the days are the same for the Maya, and the I Ching in the beginning of the I Ching, the first 20 are those. Number 11 talks about where you see in it here one who is able to borrow of their neighbors and create basically wealth without using their own stuff. And so the theme of borrowing that's Emosh. That's it right there. This is where it all comes from. So that's what they do there. They just get a bunch of gold. It's also a day when people can get away with stealing a lot of money. Or almost get away with it. A lot of times they get away with it. So I always look for the positive aspects in somebody born on Emosh. They're really obvious. They show up pretty quickly, and then you can just say to yourself, that person right there, if you find somebody born on Emosh and they have all the positive traits, that is somebody that you can really put in your don't worry about box. But if you see somebody who is prone to deception and lying, they're compulsive liars and they get away with it all the time. They're always taking money. They're always out of money. They might get into drugs and alcohol on that day. For people born on that day is very, 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 very bad. Don't do that. That's the one day that talks about it too. So there it is, the borrowing. But they can get a lot. Elizabeth Holmes, born in the Trasina of Emosh. Okay? And many, many other examples. Charles Manson. They can get people to do things. Okay? Charles Manson didn't kill anybody. He got other people to do it. And that's why he went to jail. But I don't know. That's a complicated story. But there's the examples. And then on 12, chapter 12 is rapid movement. Eek is the wind. It is the rapid movement. You don't have time to raise the bread today. We're not using yeast. You're going to slap that stuff in there, and you're going to put blood on the post. Blood on a post. Where have we seen that? Well, the symbol for Eek is the cross. So on the cross, we have a dude. There's blood on the post, isn't there? And in this book, it's blood on the post. It's like a blood sacrifice to that day or something. It's twisted. Don't do that. But the Christians know better. They're trading lives when they do that. That's what their idea is. Dominating by pedophilia is a known, it is a purposely practiced thing in the church. Tons and tons of inside victims of church sexual abuse will tell you that it was most certainly purposely done. This was not an accident. This wasn't a few bad apples. This was global, and it was widely practiced. More people got away with it than got caught, and we've caught a lot of them. But there it is, rapid movement on that day, symbolized by the cross, and it is, you don't have time for anything, and it's blood on a post. That's the day of blood sacrifice. No good. Watch out for the positive signs on that day for Eek are, again, pretty good. You can have people that are very good at conveying messages, talking, singing, these kinds of things. Flying is big on that day. Even throwing a football, even though Brett Favre may turn out to be not too good, right? Brett Favre was born on that day. He could throw that football so fast, some guys couldn't even catch it, or it would just bash their hands, right? Your hands would be sore if you were a wide receiver for that dude. And he took money from the welfare. So again, it's just these things never escape. It's always constant. And then 13 is Akabal. This is the birth of a new being from the Maya again. And that's what it is in that book. And that is pretty much all you need for that case. Exodus is not anything to do with history. It's just, it is following the days. It's describing them in some of their nastiest detail. Like, it's showing the negative aspects of the days, whereas a lot of times in Genesis it shows positive aspects, but also explains all the scandals. So we call Genesis the book of scandals, because it starts, by chapter 3 we already got human scandals. And that's what it is. 1 through 13 Exodus, they are right on, one right after the other, very specific all the way through, matching the Maya and the Chinese and the Egyptian. Okay. So, and of course in chapter 8, which is Tihox, it ends. I wanted to add this for emphasis because there's no end to emphasis that can be added on to what I am telling you. So you look here and you see the arrows. That is the water quadrant. Those arrows are outlining for you the water quadrant. That brown day in the middle, there's the glyph for Tihox with the number 1 on it. In the Tracina of Tihox, this is the way the numbers go, and it ends on Z, the day of Z. And on that verse, that is a full Tracina. So in verse 1, I think it's by 2 and 3, the frogs are all over the place. But by verse 13, that's the end of the frogs. And it's the end of the frogs because that is the end of that Tracina. It is that simple. So there's the frogs, and then there's no frogs. They're gone. They're all done. They stink, but they're gone. They're all dead. Now we got to go clean up the frogs. But the time of the frogs ends in 13 verses. Exactly. Okay? And so that's the water quadrant over there. And the frog lives with his head out of the water and his body in the water. It's absolute perfect symbolism for that day. It is a decent representation in that chapter. And that is all I have to say today. Thank you.